Imagine discovering that your entire identity is built upon a lie orchestrated by a trusted physician in a small American town. What if the person who brought you into this world had secretly sold you to another family? This is the haunting reality for over 200 individuals known as the Hicks babies. The children born in secret, sold in silence, and left to piece together a past that was stolen from them before they could even open their eyes. What happened to these children? Why were so many birth records of theirs erased, rewritten, or never created at all? And how did they all vanish, only to reappear in the arms of strangers? This is not just a story of deception. It is a story of people searching for the truth, decades after it was stolen from them. People who look into the mirror and wonder, who am I? Where did I really come from? What happens when the truth is buried for so long that even those responsible take it to their graves? Because for the Hicks babies, every answer leads to another question, and every discovery reveals another mystery. Welcome to True Untold Stories. Here, we uncover the most gripping, shocking, and mysterious true stories that the world needs to hear. From crime mysteries and historical secrets to unbelievable real-life experiences, we bring you true untold stories every single day. So, sit back, relax, and get ready for a journey into the unknown. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, let's dive into today's true untold story. In the rolling foothills of Appalachia, where the air is crisp and the mountains stretch endlessly into the horizon, sits a town frozen in time. McCaysville, Georgia, a place where doors were rarely locked, where families gathered for church on Sundays, and where the local diner knew your order before you even sat down. It was the kind of town where trust wasn't just given, it was expected. And at the heart of it all stood the Hicks Community Clinic, a modest brick building with a white wooden sign hanging just above the entrance. It was a beacon of hope for the town's sick and suffering. If you had a fever, Doctor, Thomas Jugurthy Hicks had the cure. If your child took a tumble, he had the stitches. And if you were in trouble, real trouble, he had a solution. To most, he was more than just a doctor. He was a man of unwavering kindness, always willing to treat those who couldn't afford to pay. A family man, a churchgoer, a figure of absolute trust. People owed their lives to him, their children's lives. They sent him Christmas cards, named their babies after him. But what the town didn't know, what no one even thought to question, was that within the four walls of that clinic, something far more than medicine was being practiced. Women arrived at all hours, some under the cover of darkness, stepping out of cars with out-of-state plates. Some came alone, their faces tight with fear, their bellies round with life. Others were led in by anxious parents, their hands clutching their daughter's arms as if trying to hold on to the last bit of control over an already unraveling situation. They came to Dr. Hicks in desperation, and for them, he had answers, just not the kind you'd expect from a man in a white coat. Because Dr. Hicks wasn't just delivering babies, he was taking them, and for the right price, he was making sure they ended up in someone else's arms. For years, the town remained blissfully unaware. The children grew up, the parents never spoke of it, and those who left McCaysville with empty arms never returned. But the past has a way of clawing its way back to the surface. And decades later, the truth would begin to seep out. One lost birth certificate, one hushed confession at a time. And when it did, the people of McCaysville would be forced to ask themselves, had they trusted a man who never deserved it? For most of her life, Jane Blasio carried an unshakable feeling, something just beneath the surface, something she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't rebellion, nor was it a lack of love for the parents who raised her. It was a quiet, persistent whisper in the back of her mind, a whisper that told her, you don't belong here. She grew up in Akron, Ohio, in a loving home with parents who never made her feel like an outsider. But there were little things, differences she noticed, the way people would comment that she didn't look much like her family, the subtle hesitations when she asked about where she was born. And then there was her birth certificate, so plain, so unremarkable, so wrong. She had always known she was adopted. That part had never been a secret, but the details surrounding her birth, that was a different story. Then one day in the early 1990s, everything changed. She was sitting across from her mother, the woman who had raised her, loved her, given her the best life she could. And with a heavy heart, her mother finally told her the truth, at least the part she knew. Jane hadn't been adopted through an agency. There were no legal documents, no waiting lists, no courtroom hearings. She had been purchased. Her mother explained it as delicately as she could. They had wanted a baby more than anything, but options were limited. Then they heard about a doctor, a kind man in a small Georgia town who could make it happen. No long legal battles, no red tape. As Jane delved deeper, she uncovered that, from the 1940s to the 1960s, Dr. Hicks had illegally sold over 200 newborns to couples across the country. These transactions were shrouded in secrecy. Birth certificates were falsified, listing adoptive parents as biological ones, erasing any trace of the birth mothers. Many of these women were young, unmarried, and vulnerable, coerced into giving up their babies under the guise of providing them with better lives. The town of McCaysville was divided. Some viewed Dr. Hicks as a savior, providing children to those who couldn't conceive. Others saw him as a profiteer, exploiting desperate women and commodifying human life. The ethical lines were blurred, and the true extent of his actions remained a topic of heated debate. The climax of this dark saga unfolded when media outlets picked up the story, bringing national attention to the Hicks babies. Documentaries and investigative reports shed light on the harrowing experiences of those sold through the clinic. Personal stories emerged, each more heart-wrenching than the last. Individuals who had lived their entire lives unaware of their true origins were now grappling with identity crises, seeking answers to questions they never thought to ask. For years, the story had remained in the shadows, spoken about in hushed voices, buried beneath decades of silence. But secrets, no matter how deeply hidden, have a way of surfacing. By the mid-1990s, Jane Blasio's relentless pursuit of the truth had begun to crack open a long, sealed vault of deception. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and soon, the world would come to know what had been concealed for so long. It started small, local whispers turning into murmurs, murmurs turning into questions. But then, something changed. The media got wind of the story, and once it reached the public eye, there was no going back. Newspapers ran headlines that made people do double takes. The doctor who sold babies, stolen at birth, the Hicks Clinic scandal, a town's darkest secret finally exposed. The words were jarring, unbelievable. How could this have happened in America? How could one man have operated a black market baby ring for years, unchecked, unnoticed? Then came the television specials, the news broadcasts, the investigative documentaries. National networks sent reporters to McCaysville, cameras rolling as they knocked on doors, asking the townspeople the same question over and over. What did you know about Dr. Hicks? Some still defended him, refusing to believe the man they had trusted could have done something so terrible. Others lowered their voices, casting nervous glances over their shoulders as they admitted they had heard rumors. But in a town that small, questioning a respected doctor wasn't something people did. But the most gut-wrenching part of the story wasn't just about Dr. Hicks. It was about the lives he had left in his wake. One by one, the Hicks babies began to come forward. People who had lived for decades without the slightest suspicion that the parents who raised them weren't the ones who had given birth to them. People who now had to face the reality that they had been sold, not adopted. Some of them took the news as best as they could, determined to track down their origins. Others struggled, caught in a whirlwind of emotions they never could have prepared for. There were stories of grief, people mourning the loss of a past they had never even known to miss. There were stories of anger, rage at the system, at the secrecy, at the man who had played God with their lives. And then there were stories of desperate hope, those who clung to the chance that they might still be able to find their birth families before it was too late. But there was one thing all the Hicks babies had in common. They had questions. Who were their real parents? Had their mothers searched for them? Had they been wanted? Or were they simply erased, their existence traded away with the stroke of a pen? For some, the answers would come. For others, the truth would remain just out of reach, locked away in a past that could never fully be restored. The world was watching now, and for the first time in history, the Hicks babies were no longer just a secret hidden in a small Appalachian town. They were a movement, a force determined to reclaim the identities that had been stolen from them before they ever had a chance to speak their own names. The story of Dr. Thomas Hicks is more than just a scandal from a forgotten town. It is a lesson, a stark reminder that trust can be misplaced, that even those we see as healers, as protectors, as the very pillars of our communities, can be capable of unthinkable betrayal. For decades, women walked into his clinic believing they were in the hands of a compassionate doctor, someone who would guide them through their most vulnerable moments. Instead, they were met with deception. Their choices were taken from them, their newborns given away like possessions, their lives altered forever, all by a man they had been told they could trust. And for the children, now adults, the impact of his actions runs even deeper. The concept of identity, something so fundamental to who we are, was rewritten for them before they even had a chance to speak their first words. Some found solace in the families who raised them, while others felt as if they had been living a borrowed life, always sensing something was missing, but never knowing what. How do you reconcile love with betrayal? How do you look at the people who raised you, the ones who tucked you in at night, and come to terms with the fact that their joy came at the cost of another family's grief? How do you mourn a history that was stolen before you even knew it existed? The Hicks babies continue to search for answers, but their story is not just their own. It is a reflection of a deeper truth, one that forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. Who do we trust? And should we? Because if a respected doctor in a quiet American town could orchestrate something this horrifying, how many other secrets remain buried beneath the surface? How many other lives have been shaped by lies they have yet to uncover? Dr. Hicks has long since passed, taking many of his secrets to the grave, but the consequences of his actions did not die with him. They live on in the hundreds of people still searching for the truth. They live on in the families still haunted by what was taken from them. And they live on in the rest of us, left to wonder just how well we truly know the people we trust with our lives. The end. If this story moved you, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more true untold stories that uncover the hidden facets of our shared history. Your engagement helps shine a light on stories that demand to be told.